Hello, what we're going to be covering in the next two videos are classes and inheritance. So what we're going to be covering in this video is how you can go ahead and define a base class within Swift. So the base class is what the subclass will inherit from. So we're going to create a base class named person. So in order to do that, let me type my keyword class and then the name of the class, which is person, and then my curly braces. And then what I need to do next is I need to go ahead and set up two variable properties. So the first one will be a var, and it will be defined as the name is first name and the data type is string. So when we're establishing properties within a class, we need to define the data type. And after we've defined that, we actually have a little error here. So if I go ahead and click on the error, it says the class person has no initializers. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to go ahead and click on the fix. And basically what this is doing is it's actually initializing first name to an empty string. But if we look a little bit further, we want to create an initializer that sets the first name and last name to values passed in when the init function is called. So we do not want to set the values equal to an empty string. We're going to be initializing the first name and the last name properties within our init function that we're going to go ahead and write very shortly. So let me just go ahead and delete that. So I need to go ahead and type in var and then my last name, and again that will be a string. And then after I've typed that in, I need to go ahead and create my initializer. So what we need to do is we need to type in the keyword init, and then we need to specify the parameters that will get passed into our initializer and the values that we will be using to set our person properties. So it's first name and last name, and that is a string. And then let me just put my curly braces here. So what we need to do is we need to set our first name and our last name properties to the values that are passed in via our parameters. So let me just go ahead and type in first name equals first name. And let me just go ahead and delete that compile error. So what we're running into right now is we have a little error message, and we cannot assign to value first name is a let constants. So what we need to do is we need to add the explicit self, and self is a keyword that refers to the specific instance of an object. And the use of self is required within initializers that have parameter names that match property names. So that is what is currently going on here. So I will just go ahead and click on the fix button, and then it adds the self to before the first name, and that's just distinguishing the first name parameter that gets passed in with the first name property of the instance that we're trying to create. The other thing you see is we currently have an error message. Basically, in your initializer, you must initialize all the properties. So what we need to do is we need to go ahead and add in an initializer for our last name. So I will just go ahead and type that in. So that should eliminate our compile error. So now we've initialized the first name and the last name. So our next step is to go ahead and create a method named writeOutput that prints the two properties. So we'll just go ahead and define our func, and then it will be writeOutput. And when you define a method within a class, it's considered an instance method. So any instance of the class can go ahead and call this writeOutput method. So let's go ahead and write our function signature. And what we're going to do is nothing's going to get passed in. What we're going to be displaying is just the first name property and the last name property. So let me just go ahead and add my print statements. First name, and then we will use string interpolation to go ahead and print out my first name. And let me go ahead and just Command C and Command V, and what we're going to do is we're going to print out our last name. So what I need to do is I need to specify my property name. So now we've gone ahead and we've defined our class, and if you notice that all the properties that are being used within our class, the init function and our write output function, must be within the curly braces that define our class. So what we're going to do next is we want to use the init function defined in our person class to create an instance of person, and the name of the person is person1. So let's just go ahead, we'll let person1, and that will equal, and it'll be a data type of type person. So I can go ahead and use the shortcut to hit enter, and then if I go ahead and enter my parentheses, I can use autocomplete to complete the rest of my call to create this instance person1. So I'll just go ahead and hit enter. So what they want us to do is add our first name. So I'll just put in my double quotes, type in the first name we're going to use, and then use double quotes to type in the last name. So what we're doing here is we're creating an instance of person whose first name is Chloe and whose last name of Miller, and that information is saved in our person1 constant. So what we're going to do next is we want to go ahead and print person1's first name and last name using dot notation. So in order to do that, we just specify our print statement, and then within our print, what we need to do is we need to specify the instance that we're going to print out the first name and the last name. So that's the first thing, so it's person1, and then what we're going to do, once you type in the instance name that you've defined up above, our person1, then you can go ahead and just use the autocomplete to select our first name. So what that'll do is that'll basically print out Chloe, and then I'll type in my print, and again I'll specify my person1 and use dot notation, and I will specify my last name. And let me see here, I don't want a last name, I don't want that on the separate line here, so we will just go ahead and delete. So what we're going to do is we're going to run our playground right now, so I will just click on the run button. And what it's done is it's gone ahead, it's created an instance of person up above. If we click on that, the person1 instance has a first name of Chloe and last name of Miller. And then what we're doing on lines 28 and 29 is we're printing that information to the console. So our final step then is to just call the write output method to print person1's property. So instead of printing each of the properties separately, we've created this write output function that we can go ahead and call. And what that'll do is that'll print the first name of the last name of the instance that we're calling it on. So we're just going to go ahead and specify person1, and then we'll use dot notation, and what we're going to select is our write output function. And then I will just go ahead and rerun, and basically what we see down below is a first name of Chloe and the last name of Miller. So what we've done here is we've called the write output function on our person1 instance, and it knows that within our person1 instance the first name is Chloe and the last name is Miller, so it just goes ahead and prints out our first name of Chloe and our last name of Miller. So what we've done in this video is we've gone ahead and created a base class. So in the next video we're going to create a class that inherits from this base class. So we will be talking to you later.